I'm Liam. You will have seen me on previous ones, and a big welcome to Jack Duff from Huntress. How are you, Jack?
Hi there, Liam. I'm really well, thanks. Sun is shining down here in the south of England. How about yourself?
Yeah, I think we've definitely caught the best of the spring weather. Unfortunately, we're both stuck indoors, but who knows? Maybe we'll be able to get out early after this. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, pretty cool.
So, yeah, today's sort of flavor is very much security for SMEs. Obviously, uh, ourselves working in the IT industry, yourself working for a cybersecurity vendor. We've both been a lot busier over the last couple of years. I think it's definitely coming to the forefront of people's minds. So, yeah, just tell us a bit about the general landscape and where you guys come in, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. So my name is Jack Duff. I work at Huntress as a sales engineer here. So I work with IT companies like NetMonkeys to help improve their customers' cybersecurity posture as well there through the use of our kind of managed security technologies that we have out there.
Mhm.
But we're very focused on thought leadership and protecting the 99% of businesses. Basically, we're for
Yeah.
everybody, not just the 1%, if you will. So we have companies of all sizes that are protected with Huntress through partners like NetMonkeys. And yeah, it's important that you say it, Liam. The cyber threat landscape is bringing up a real important point, especially for the SMB, is that they're needing to improve their security. I think for sure, and that's through no fault of their own, right? As well, they're targeted. They're now seen as the low hanging fruit for cyber criminals as well. There, you take a look at your big enterprises, right? Like, they have the budgets to put in place very large, very redundant security systems. So it's a difficult thing for hackers to get through, right? It's the long play, right? Is that they have to think of, who's the weak link in the company I can send some cryptocurrency to give me their credentials, or what old unpacked systems are that exposed on the internet I can get in, and then, how can I scan for stuff? It takes a long time. You're fighting big companies with big budgets. And so, hackers have limited budgets. They're scrappy, and they want to find the easy targets, which is the soft underbelly of the SMB market globally, right? Because
Yeah.
a lot of companies assume we're too small to be attacked, and unfortunately, that's a dangerous mindset because
Yeah, we hear that a lot. I think obviously NetMonkeys are a good portion of our companies are in the sort of SMB space. And I think it's almost like that shadow of technology moving so far forward. A lot of people are coming in, quite fresh to these new technologies and what can come out. And as a result, the people that are attacking the bad actors, the hackers, they're at a point where they have, more of an inside track. And like you say, the SMEs do often become the low hanging fruit. It's a pretty poor statistic, to be honest, that I know the charity sector in particular is often finding itself targeted quite a lot, purely because, the focus of a charity isn't to be as high tech as possible. It's to help the cause that it's trying to prevent and trying to support. And yeah, unfortunately, we are in an area now where, even people in goodwill have to sort of be that security conscious.
yeah.
But it's something that we're here to help at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely as well. And there's the challenges of the SMB are vastly different to those at the enterprise, right? And not enough
Mhm.
companies adapt to help with that. I think that's where NetMonkeys and Huntress play a big part. Especially you look at things like that, like charities. I spoke to a charity last year who needed a lot of advice post a breach. They sent disadvantaged kids overseas on holidays. They paid for it, and they were funded and staffed by volunteers entirely. The IT manager was a Sky engineer, and the IT manager part was his part-time role, and they unfortunately got hit with a Microsoft 365 breach, and they lost £100,000 from their bank account.
Yeah.
They have those challenges, or remote hybrid work, as well as another one that
Mhm.
expanded the attack surface for smaller companies as well.
Yeah.
Uh, People are working from coffee shops with insecure public Wi-Fi where they can be key logged and their credentials potentially stolen or session tokens stolen. And these campaigns from hackers and threat actor groups that are out there, they don't discriminate. If you have
No.
data or customers, you're a target 100%.
Yeah. I think if you are, in that hacker's mindset, the cast a wide enough net. It's not about, you know, you've got different strategies, but if you cast a wide enough net on inexperienced people, there is obviously going to be that low hanging fruit there. And I think, just moving on to probably our next sort of point is one of the best things you can do is get your people savvy. It's been referred to as the human firewall before. You can have the greatest tech in the world, but if you've got people that are switched on, and have had that training on what to look out for, you're just so much more protected.
Mm, absolutely. Yeah. It's unfortunately the case again. And I like to think that Huntress is, yeah, and probably NetMonkeys as well, is that, we try and steer away from the viewpoint in that, people are to blame for doing things they don't know are bad, if you will.
Yeah.
You get a lot of, scrutiny. It's like, oh, you should never have clicked on that link, or you did this thing that was bad that you didn't even know about, in your job role. And so, we try and educate people and show them that, this is what is out there. This is the threat, why it's malicious, and how you can avoid it in the future, so that it doesn't damage yourself or your company or anything like that. And yeah, as you say, Liam, people are often the weakest link. Clicking a malicious link or using even a weak password can potentially cause thousands of pounds spent on. Yeah, I
Yeah.
do can undo the thousands that are spent on tech. But they can be the strongest offense when trained right, as you say.
Yeah, the days of password 123 are well and truly over. I think,
Yeah.
yeah, we've got. I, I think I can't emphasize enough how much having guys that are trained on what to look out for, particularly on things such as email threats. It's well known that email is probably the most attacked vector in cybersecurity, just because
Yeah.
uh, anyone can get an email address and send something, and you can have filters, you can have protection in that way, but they're quite sophisticated in the way they can get around that.
Yeah.
Luckily, there's usually some key things to look out for in an email you receive,
Mhm.
and if your people know what to look for, that is a big step into making sure that that breach area is covered. I think we could probably go into some sort of top tips on what to look out for a bit later on.
Oh,
But I think, having that training in place is definitely something that I would recommend to all businesses, regardless of size. I know that there's a number of solutions out there, some of which us at NetMonkeys and you guys at Huntress help. You've got Curricula, which is a very good training platform. It keeps things quite light, but it's not death by PowerPoint like some training can be. And I think that's something that, yeah, is definitely worth keeping an eye on, particularly if you are a small growing business, just to make sure that anyone you bring on board is up to a good level from the off.
yeah, for sure, definitely. I think it's one of these things as well for companies where we need to shatter the perception of it as well around security awareness training. In a lot of people's minds, I think they think it's something that applies to only large companies, and it's something that applies it's a one-off thing. It's a tick in the
Mm.
box exercise, and you might do it again in a few years' time, depending on why or when you need it. But I think it's important to note that it's something that should be an ongoing process as well. Low level and low touch for sure.
Mhm.
Kind of emulating, the immunity model of the body, right? You get less sick the more you are exposed to these low level weakened viruses, right? Like vaccines and whatnot. And I think the importance of training it is just like that as well. Having these regular monthly short training episodes to do, as well as these phishing simulations, whereby being aware of what's in your inbox. Does that email look right? Is the format or the language a little bit off? Does the domain look like it's Microsoft, even though it says some horrible chaotic mess of numbers and letters or words?
Yeah.
Just to be aware of those things. So they take seconds, but it's something that needs to be reinforced through that training. It's like a good exercise routine, right? Like keeping it
Yeah.
consistent, regular for sure.
Yeah. Little and often is the way to go.
Little often, absolutely, yeah, and it's accessible now as well, right? I think that um, we only know things through the lens of our experience, right, and what we feel like
Mm.
is. Last time I looked at that, that's what I think that thing is, and but now it's super achievable or within the grasp of SMBs now. It's not all doom and gloom. It's available and affordable, I think, for a lot of SMBs out there, with providers that offer outsourced security or their expertise in building these training courses, all these security monitoring tools like ourselves, other companies do as well. It doesn't have to be intimidating. You can start small and you can scale up, and it kind of it builds gains over time for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that growth of the threat, has been driven by a stronger uptake in technology. But having that technology as standard and being more accessible means, the options to protect it are also, become more available in the market, be it through providers like ourselves, and obviously the rest of the industry. And I think things like, this podcast and a lot of, what the MSP space is saying is making sure that that message is out there and being heard by business owners and entrepreneurs, that you can't
Yeah.
cut corners anymore. I think the days of, oh, well, this guy's quite good with Excel, he can be our head of IT, that people know that that's not enough anymore. And I think, yeah, there's a lot of fear mongering in the space, like not intentionally, but I think a lot of people focus on, oh, there's so much trouble out there. There's such a threat to everyone. What people don't really say enough is actually the options in there to get yourself more secure, to get protected. They are no longer this big, expensive, technical. You mentioned outsourced security. It's more available to everyone than it's ever been. And I think it's just waking up and smelling the roses and knowing, look, it is another part. It's just as important as being able to work from home and the flexible, the technology drive has changed the way we work in that sense. It's also increased, security is just an element that you have to take as a fundamental part of your business now. The same way you would a finance department, an IT department, provided you've got security in place and you're playing by the rules, it's easy enough to get set up. And I think that sort of flip side of the, ooh, it's so scary out there, is important to say, yes, there is more threats out there, but there's also a lot more ways to protect yourself that are easily available, particularly in the SMB market. Because on the last podcast I did with a company called Orchard Safety, they'd only been in business about 3 years. And I was chatting with their MD, and he mentioned, in that first couple of years, he was having to wear so many different hats, the MD hat, the consultant hat, and indeed the IT hat. So having that chat with us and being able to almost hand the reins, even at a fairly small company size, that's something you can do now that you probably couldn't do 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's easier to get started than ever, I think, as well. And I really like the idea, personally and professionally, of trying to address, why people might not have addressed their security, requirements now, and kind of flip it on its head, kind of say, well, there's no shame in it, kind of saying, these are the gaps we have, because people at NetMonkeys are already there to kind of say that we've got all these plug and play options to help improve your security from day one, if you will, with that managed services, and taking some of that pressure, right, as well, and off of people's shoulders to kind of say, we've got that, we're monitoring that 24/7, and you can focus on your business. And I really like that. So from a personal standpoint, I'm doing my my CISSP studies at the moment. So for those who aren't aware, it's a globally recognized certification for cybersecurity professionals. And a really important part of that is when talking about creating security policies for businesses, is making sure that your company objectives align with your security objectives. And they always kind of go hand in hand as well, because the company can't achieve if there's not security in place to protect the idea and the service and the thing that you offer as that company.
Yeah.
If you have a certain type of data, right, that has to be distributed in a certain way, or live in certain places, or used in certain ways, it needs to be protected in different ways, right, than other systems and other software. So if there isn't a security plan or objective that aligns with that, one or the other might ultimately fail. So that's the core part of the studies, if you will, which I love. And I think it's really applicable to all businesses, especially in the SMB world.
Yeah, no, definitely. So you mentioned obviously you're doing an accreditation, leads us quite nicely. There was obviously accreditations out there for businesses, which get your name out there in the wild world as you're doing the right things. Here in the UK, the one everyone will have heard of is Cyber Essentials, which is a government-backed scheme. It's a checklist of good management, good practice. A big part of what we do at NetMonkeys is our managed security package, which actually uses the same credentials. So if you've got RMSS, you are good enough to get that accreditation. And I think from a security standpoint, obviously it's best practice. It's making sure you know you're doing the right things. But then from a commercial point of view, you're proving to your customers that you're a safe pair of hands. And I
Yeah.
think in today's marketplace, when there's more options than ever, I think just making sure that people have that peace of mind dealing with yourselves
Mm.
can go a long way. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, reputationally as well.
It does, yeah. I mean, it's like for those who aren't aware of it, right? As you said there, Liam, Cyber Essentials is a great framework backed by the UK government for UK businesses, and it helps establish a good security baseline, right? As you say that, and I think that's really important when you're thinking about growing your business is that achieving certifications like that show your customers and your partners that you take security seriously, right? You take the idea of your business seriously, and you want to protect it, grow it because you want to achieve a certain aim or security provision. And there are loads of lightweight standards that help you as well to get to grips with things like Cyber Essentials as well. There are things like the NIST cybersecurity framework as well. I like the way that breaks that down into you identify, protect, respond, recover, all that kind of stages, and
Mm.
see what gaps you may have somewhere. Cyber Essentials has those great requirements as well, which those standards are changing this month as well. So for anyone who's technical or watching, keep an eye out for those as I am as well to see what changed in the standards in there too. But I always like to think of it like these accreditations, these Cyber Essentials and whatnot. They're kind of like the health and safety for your digital workplace, if you will. You've got health and safety for your premises, right, for your office to make sure your electricity is up to code, and there's guardrails in place for going down steps or whatever. You need health and safety for your digital workplace as well as your physical one too.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good way to look at it. And it kind of ties in a bit with what we said about, seeing security as just another one of those departments that is invaluable to your business. I think making sure that is up to standard. For those of you that are pure capitalists and care about the money, money, money as well, having this framework and this badge also has its other benefit in the insurance world. A lot of companies now are requiring cyber insurance, and as well as showing your potential customers that you are doing the right things and you have a solid baseline, you are showing the insurance broker. So premiums often have a much more positive effect if you are accredited. It's showing you're working on the exam, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And even as well, those gaps that people may potentially not know they have in the tools they have, the networking equipment they have, the security solutions they have, and NetMonkeys can plug those gaps as well, right? To then mean that those premiums come down. I don't know if anybody's seen any of those kind of those application forms for cyber insurance, but it's often lots of check boxes that say, do you have next gen AV? Do you have a next gen firewall? Do you have EDR, security awareness training, the SIEM solution? They don't tell you what these things are as well. So you're a little bit lost in the fog of war as an SMB business owner. And so I think people like NetMonkeys as well, especially can help you decode what that means and why it's important to have that. Because, unfortunately, and I don't always like bringing it back to the fear mongering, but it's usually a question of, when, not if for other companies, when you have some kind of data leakage or, God forbid, a breach or a cyber incident as well there. And just like you would have for your car in the event of a potential incident, you'd have the cyber insurance risk potential incident there as well. So yeah, there's and I think there's a big part of what I like to do when talking to SMBs is give those kind of top tips as well, right? Like top tips around cybersecurity in general. For those who are technically minded or those that know they have certain gaps as well here. For those of you who are just like, I'm completely lost and this is new field for me, then NetMonkeys consultants, for example, are there to help guide you as well. But things like, regular patching, right? Most breaches occur through known vulnerabilities in outdated software systems, be they your Windows versions or other third-party apps that you use. Hackers are constantly scanning and testing and seeing what bugs there are that they could exploit to gain access to your systems and your data, right? And so that's a huge one as well. I know NetMonkeys kind of will automate a lot of those processes as well to get rid of any kind of human error, which is the gold standard to do as well. So yeah, super important top one, I would say.
Yeah, I think I've been in companies, and I know a lot of people have been in companies before where you do get that your administrator needs you to restart your machine to apply an update, and it is so easy to just go, oh yeah, do it. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Just provided you're not on something that needs to be done right now, just do it.
Yeah.
Get it's the peace of mind out of the way. The companies that look for vulnerabilities to fix them and patch, it's a constant game of cat and mouse. So when these things are discovered as vulnerable, there's often a fix available within a day, sometimes even less. So as soon as that fix is available, it's just doing your due diligence. I think going back to emails and the big threat vector, a big, I'd say one that I've not been caught out with, but I've seen people caught out before. Anyone that sends you a link, right click and see what the URL to that link is as well, because the email can look as genuine, really polished. The email address can be from a very, very good spoof. But if the link is not going to the site that you're from, it's a huge red flag, and it's so easy to just right click and see the URL address. And it's one of those that it's harder to copy, but by just putting it in a link rather than an address, it just makes things hiding in plain sight quite easy from the hacker's perspective.
Yeah.
So yeah, things like that. Obviously the general tone might be wrong, and anyone trying to create urgency for you to do something and do it now,
Yeah.
it's a bit of critical thinking goes a long way.
Mm.
I think, there's all sorts of examples through human history where that's actually saved us. During the Cold War, there was a missile crisis where a Russian engineer saw there was a US nuke on the way, and the critical thinking of, there's not one. If they were sending one, they'd send them all. This must be a problem with the system. Probably saved the whole world. So maybe not quite the same stakes on an email, but yeah, just look at everything with a little bit of just critical thinking, and you do go a long way there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what's nice as well, in that you don't have to go it alone. I think as SMB, to work hand in hand with a managed service provider like NetMonkeys as well, is they can take that pressure off you in terms of saying, we'll be responsible for the uptime, the availability of your IT systems, the confidentiality to make sure that's safe, the security measures put in place, and then at the same time, because there's no silver bullet in cybersecurity, right? Because hackers are always thinking of new exploits and new tactics to get around things. They're humans like us, right? As much as they're we're out there portrayed the media, they are ingenious, right? And as all people are, they'll find a way around something. And so that regular cybersecurity training to identify things like phishing emails, bad links, etc., help keep your your cyber resilience kind of topped up, as high as you can, really, and also then stand you in great stead for, as you said, cyber insurance in the eyes of the ICO here in the UK as well, in terms of, if you then did suffer some kind of breach or incident after having all these measures in place with NetMonkeys, regular training, you'll never get the gavel, slammed down or the book thrown at you, because it's about the efforts you make. The ones that do are the ones that, disregard the advice and the policies put in place on multiple occasions, and with the money they could have put in place to do that. And so those ones that flagrantly disabandon that advice and options, they're the ones that get hit with the hefty fines and get hit with the prestige hits and whatnot. So definitely top there, top other advice, top to there. Yeah, you don't have to go it alone. You've got MSPs out there who could easily plug it in and take the weight off your shoulders.
Yeah. I think you've got the technology there that's more accessible, and then if you've got the people that know what they're doing, it's like a triple lock. You just it will take a phenomenal effort to get past you. And if they did, then you've got, well, we were doing all the right stuff in terms of, like you say, the ICO and through cyber insurance. So, yeah, in summary, if you're an SME, take your security seriously. It's no longer a case of I'm too small to be hit. But at the same time, know that you aren't alone. There are lots of companies out there like ourselves that are here to help. And I think moving on to that, we've got a couple of shameless plugs at the end that we're going to have to do. On May the 2nd, we have a webinar coming up, which will help understand thinking like a hacker. I believe, Jack, are you going to be on that one?
That's me, buddy. Yep, I'll be presenting that one as well. So I'll be taking yourselves and your webinar audience through basically a few things we've covered today. But the primary driving theme is that hackers are not staying still, and they are operating like startup businesses. They're adapting. They're trying to automate as well, and they're trying to be more efficient. They're trying to target more victims at once in different ways, and standardize their playbooks and the operations to get more money basically, and target more companies. So are we taking you and your audience through those kind of things, and basically highlighting that if they're doing that in the criminal activity world of hackers, you guys should be doing that as small size business owners, right? I'm talking to people like NetMonkeys to help you focus on your business and get your IT shored up.
Yeah, absolutely. Really looking forward to that one. I'll be on it as well, probably primarily as a spectator and letting you do your thing. We also have a company event that we are doing on the day before, May the 1st. Anyone that follows me on LinkedIn will see all sorts of posts for that. It's just an opportunity for some of our customers in our wider network to kind of get to know us rather than just be on the other end of a support ticket. But yeah, I think that's about all we've got time for. But it's been really good chatting with Jack. And I think, there's some really key points that people can really take away from this. And hopefully if it stops one person from clicking on that link or taking a second to think about the security, then it definitely would have been worth the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say wholeheartedly echo those points. And my kind of final call to action to anybody who's listened this long or heard the soundbite would be, don't wait until something breaks. If they invest in your cyber resilience today, and your future self will thank you for sure.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you very much for your time, Jack. And yeah, I'll speak to you soon.
Cheers. Thanks, Liam. Thanks, everybody.